Here are the exact rules and guidelines that we're going to be implementing with my son now and as he gets older with regards to screen time. Let me caveat this by saying that this is our plan as of now. It might change as we go, but as of right now, we're basing it heavily on this book, The Anxious Generation. So to start off with, my son is now 8.5 months old. Until he is a year and a half, we are trying to do no screens, we're trying to do no TV, no movies. The only screens that we allow is if we're doing FaceTime with family or friends, because that's more of like an active engagement versus passively watching TV, for example. At 18 months, that's where I see us beginning to introduce supervised educational programs. So I'm thinking things like Miss Rachel, Sesame Street, that kind of vibe. Nothing overstimulating, really with an emphasis on learning versus entertainment, if you see what I mean. At 2 years old, that's when we'll start to introduce non-educational programs. Again, I want to be really selective around what we are showing him. I expect that I'll lean heavily on shows like Bluey, on shows from our childhood that were a little bit slower paced. We will limit it to 1 hour per weekday and 3 hours per day on the weekend. Again, this is based on recommendations from this book. 3 hours feels like a lot to me, so we'll see how it goes. 6 years old is where we start to kind of like ramp up on the screen time. There'll be a limit of 2 hours per day of recreational screen-based activities. What I mean by that is, for example, putting aside any schoolwork, any homework that needs to be done on a computer. This is just looking at TV shows, games, things like that. All devices will be kept in common areas. So for example, if he wants to watch TV, he'll be watching it in the living room. If he wants to use the computer, we will have a computer in the living room with the screen facing inwards. This is actually one of the things that this book recommends around protecting children online, is to make sure that any devices are communal and are not explored privately until the child is ready. The next thing is around maximizing real-world activities and sleep, just encouraging him to not be sat at home on the computer all day long, no social media at all. And then towards the end of the 6 to 12 year bucket, he will get access to a basic phone. So we're not doing smartphones until then. Very simple phone functionality. So at 13 to 18 is when we'll start to introduce a smartphone. When he enters high school is when he'll get his smartphone. So this is almost like a rite of passage moment. So he'll get a little bit more freedom. The phone will be removed from him an hour before bed. And again, trying to create unsupervised opportunities in the real world. So something that this book really emphasizes is the importance of really encouraging your kid to get a driver's license as soon as possible, encouraging him to have as much freedom as he can as soon as he can. And then in terms of additional layers that will sit on top of everything that I just mentioned, making sure that any family meals, which we try and do one a day all together, and any family outings, which we try and do once a week together, are screen free. So as adults, really modeling for him how we want him to use technology and how we want him to disconnect from technology, utilizing parental controls as much as possible, not leaning on technology when we have a meltdown. And already we're having instances where he will be upset and crying, and we'll have family members being like, just put on the TV, and we're having to say, no, please don't, because we don't want, as I said, to lean on that as a crutch. We want to help him as much as we can without relying on screens. Of course, there will be instances where I'm sure we will be at the end of our tether and feel the need to use a screen. There will be flex to this. This is just kind of the plan for now. And then finally, throughout all of this, no screens an hour before bedtime for my son. Yeah, that's what we're thinking. Again, I'm mindful that we are very far out from all of this and the world's always changing, but this is just what we're thinking as of now, in case it's helpful for anyone else. Specifically around the next few years and how we're intending to introduce screens. I think everyone has to do what's right for them. So just because I'm doing this does not mean that I'm prescribing this to everyone, but I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions, or if you just want to laugh at me, because honestly, I could see a lot of parents watching this and being like, oh, she has an 8-month-old and she's saying she's going to be screen free until he's 2. We'll see how it goes.